Hi, my name's Robert Kapel. I have about 4 years in recovery. Recently, I graduated State University with a degree in public relations and got my CDCA license. Currently, I am the house manager at a sober living recovery center called Pathway to Wellness and working at the Wellmore Center in New Philadelphia as a case manager.
So let's talk about childhood.
My father was a very active and engaged in my childhood. My mother, she was in and out throughout our lives.
So what about you? So how old were you when you first started experimenting with drugs or alcohol?
Smoking weed when I was about 15 years old. Never was much of a drinker. Me and my buddies might have ended up at the elementary school. We all used to hang out, drink like a 40 or something every now and then, but it was never my thing. Moved out of my dad's house into my mom's house. I grew up outside DC. She lived in Baltimore, moved there. The environment there, at the time, she was still in active addiction, and I was kind of, to say I wasn't on my own, but I was taking care of myself at 16, got around the wrong people, and kind of experimented with heroin and crack. I was never an IV user, but from about the time I was 16 to about 17, going on to 18, that was kind of the things I would get involved in and everything. It was a lot of it was just people, places, and things. Young, easily influenced, by people. So.
Did you graduate high school?
No, I actually got my GED.
Okay.
Got my GED when I was 16. As far as that goes, the high school I went to, the area I was in, that was, I think, another thing that influenced drugs and just that culture can have. It was bad, the high school was like something you would see out of a movie almost, not quite like Dangerous Minds, but, there are people getting stabbed at bus stops, young kids selling drugs at a very young age, 15, 16. So just that culture was kind of what led to me getting my GED. Once I realized I had to get a grip on myself, and even at that young age I realized that I really don't want to go down this path with what I'd mentioned I was experimenting with then. My grandma needed help. She lived out at Tappan Lake in Harrison County. She was older. She had a heart surgery a few years before that, and I've never really told many people this. Whenever they asked when I moved up here, be like, oh, I moved up here to help my grandma, which is true, but there was another end to it. I knew I needed help, I knew I needed to go through the withdrawals from the heroin use, and and I don't know if I ever even told her that, but I don't think she realizes how much that helped me too. It was like a trade-off, except I'm the only one that knew the trade-off, I guess. But yeah, so that's how it started. I moved up here to help her and got clean from all of those substances and kind of tried to get things back on track.
So by the time that you moved to Ohio, were you using heroin every day?
There near the end, yeah. And it got to a point my friends started using a needle, and that's when I realized I never did, and okay, this is progressing to a point that I don't want to be a part of this anymore, which all that actually started with OxyContin use. As I was working for a carnival. Imagine the things that were going on with that, and the OxyContins got too expensive, and someone's like, oh yeah, this is cheaper, and then that progressed, oh, it was cheaper. It's well, now it progressed to putting a needle in your arm, and that's, I called my grandma.
So what happened when you moved up here with your grandma?
Where she lived, it was very isolated, and I was never much of a drinker. I started to become a drinker, just replacing one substance with another, So it would start out just kind of drinking a couple beers or whatever. Even at this point, when I got my first DUI when I was 19, I wasn't much of a drinker. I was actually supposed to be going to Cleveland took my ASVAB test and everything. I was trying to go into the Air Force the night before I was supposed to go to Cleveland for my physical. I had some drinks someplace I was working, and ended up running into a porch with my car, a mixture of the drinking, and my brakes went out and led to my DUI.
Wow.
And yeah, so that unfortunately that didn't get to manifest, but so that was my first DUI when I was 19. I got my second DUI a few months after that. That was just as a result of loneliness, isolation, not having any friends, feeling hopeless, feeling alone. Everybody which, I mean, you could consider it a gateway drug to like marijuana, but I think alcohol is a real gateway drug. Like,
Yeah.
I've never had a cocaine problem after my stint in Baltimore or whatever, but there are times I would drink and it would lead to cocaine
Right.
use.
So when you get involved in like certain substances like alcohol or pills, do you become obsessed with it?
I don't think I've really ever felt like that. A lot of it was, if I was obsessive about anything, it was getting rid of the negative emotions and feelings that I had inside me and not managing those in the correct way, to just have a overall value of life and happiness,
So can you give me like one or two examples that really illustrate your active addiction? You did talk about the DUIs, but is there anything else that really like stand out to you?
So the last charge that I got off probation for was a F4 drug possession of psilocybin. So in story of that, I passed out in the yard with 2.5 ounces of mushrooms in my pocket. What that happened because of my alcohol use. It would have never happened. I would have never bought the mushrooms if I wasn't drinking it. I would have never passed out in that yard. The day I was supposed to get off probation for one of my DUIs, I got indicted on that charge, and that day it hit me. I didn't know that was coming. I was finally like, oh cool, I'm getting off probation. It'd been about 6 years straight at that point, and getting indicted for that, and then reflecting on everything, like, man, like, you passed out in a yard. Like, I mean, I was eating the mushrooms, but honestly, the drinking is what led to the whole events of that evening, and it made me realize, like, man, you gotta get a grip on this. Like, you're sleeping in a yard with, 2.5 mushrooms in your pocket. You just got indicted. Everything that you've been planning for up until this day because of that incident, which started with drinking that evening, is leading to you now with your hands on the wall when you thought you were signing papers to get off probation.
Was that your like moment of clarity, your aha moment that kind of led you to sobriety?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that was the one that was a defining moment when I got indicted and realized this isn't over yet. Ended up spending about 150 days in jail. Woke up thinking I was getting off probation, resulting in another summer in jail. Just can't do it anymore. It's like, I cannot live this way anymore.
Trying to live sober. What did you do?
Began with one organization. I wasn't didn't feel like I was getting the attention that I wanted at the time, and became affiliated with the place I work at now, and just going to groups, doing the individual counseling, really getting to a lot of at the bottom of why I was so emotionally distressed. My father passing away, it was a pretty ugly situation, and the desire at the time to get out of this area, to live somewhere else, it helped a lot talking to people, like getting to the bottom of why I felt the way I felt, why I was so miserable.
And how were your relationships?
My dad's not around anymore, is how it impacted that, because he was always the one who would bond me out, help me out, get me out. I wish he could see how I'm doing now. So and that impacted it at the time. It really did. It stressed him out. Even when my grandma was still alive, like that first DUI when I hit the porch, the shame I felt. I was on the front page of the paper. Our last name, Kapel, is not a common name. It's easily made.
Yeah.
That association in a small area like Tuscarawas County or Harrison County, like, oh, wow, I bet he's related to Mary Kay, was my grandma's name, So she was just not like mean or nothing about it, but that sat with me wrong too. It definitely impacted it in a way. I wouldn't say that there was ever a stop of contact or anything like that, but looking back now, I knew I could do a lot better. I just wish they could see that now.
And talk about like the first couple of years, how things started to change in your life.
Started going to IOP and kind of like made like goals and objectives, like, no, I can do this, I want to go back to school. So I wrote the thing asking for forgiveness for student loans. I can't remember the name of it now, for the second time, but for the longest time, like, well, I screwed that up, they won't and re-enroll me again, or they won't let me get my student loans again to be able to pay for school. And I wrote it the second time, they approved it, like, oh cool, little baby step. Next, just getting back enrolled in school. Like, okay, got there. And once I started doing that, my whole kind of, the way I felt about myself changed. like once I started accomplishing things, it led me to be able to have the confidence to be able to do that. Not to just keep making excuses, I guess, for, oh, I can't do this, I don't have my license, or, oh, I can't do this, my record, oh, they're not going to hire me. It's like, well, okay, probably not first time, probably not second time, but just to keep persevering through it gave me the ability to do that and kind of keep going. Not to give up, because I gave up for a while there, especially after my dad died. I gave up.
Have you been diagnosed with any other mental health issues? You said that you have had some issues in the past.
Yeah, PTSD had a big impact on, especially like the blackout drinking and all that for a long time,
Yeah.
Like those emotions and not wanting to deal with it. It's like, well, I can't have all these bad dreams, or what if I'm,
right,
blackout drunk? So that was
Yeah.
my way of handling it, and I found a healthier way of handling it. And making peace with myself. I had to put a lot of blame on myself. The situation happened with my dad. So making peace with myself about that it wasn't my fault. It was, a situation with him. He lived out at Tappan Lake, where my grandma's house, very isolated area. Laid in the house for a week until he was found, and the smell from that was overbearing. And then it was on my end, a lot of self grief that I could have done something, so dealing with that and so that was hard, but I had to put it behind me. As soon as I made the decision to put that behind me, that's when my whole demeanor changed, just my feeling about myself.
What are some intangible gifts, meaning like peace of mind or serenity, things like that you have received in recovery? And what are some tangible gifts, things like, you just said that you got your license back, which is awesome. So
not to put a name on or to call any person or any living thing mine, but the people I work with, these are my people. The ability to be able to contribute and to help, to be able to sit here now and hopefully be the reason why somebody, especially at the case management end of things, like to be able to provide the guidance to go get your high school diploma, and then they achieve it, and to kind of be the cheerleader behind that, and the thing to help build their confidence. That's priceless. I think I really do. Like, I enjoy it. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything that could really replace that in this field, whether it be the place I work or in another facility or organization. In tangible, the degree is cool, the CDCA license is cool, the paper, and I don't know if this would really be tangible, the paper I got saying I was off probation and it was done, that was cool.
So what would you say that your biggest challenge that you have faced in recovery so far?
People, places, and things.
Yeah.
Boredom, staying busy. If I start to feel like I'm not accomplishing something, or I'm not working towards a goal or trying to better myself, I can feel myself slipping back into those dark thoughts, the lack of confidence, not having value in myself, that I love to achieve things. I love higher education, learning things, or to be part of something, no matter how big or small it is.
Speaking of that, what are some goals, dreams, hopes, aspirations for the future for you?
I want to start a nonprofit. I got everything thought out. I've done everything except for submit the paperwork. I'd love to start a nonprofit. It'd be named after my dad. It's going to be called Big Bob's Helping Hand. He always helped people with everything. The idea is as simple as something that's changing a light bulb, or as complicated as like a hole in the roof that you don't have the money to pay for. So, and I think that could provide an extended living period for people in their homes. That's my goal. I want to do that.
I love that. And your dad would be very, very proud.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I think it could be awesome.
So if you had to pick like your favorite feeling that you've received in recovery that wasn't there in active addiction, what would it be?
My self-confidence.
And what have you learned from your addiction?
I didn't live up to my full ability, and everybody that I meet with on a daily basis, they are great people, full of great ideas, full of skills, and and it really can set you back not to live up to your full potential.
Okay, so for somebody out there that is struggling, that may be watching this, do you have any words of hope that you could share?
So when you get clean and you're dealing with like the post-acute withdrawal symptoms and everything, having patience for a 2-month period can seem like a long time, but you know, you get your goals and objectives, you work with someone who can assist you with this and plan it out for you. You know, you start to get them small accomplishments. Next thing you know, 2-3 months, realize that, wow, I can't believe I was able to achieve that, whether it be trying to get your high school diploma, trying to get your license back, maybe just reconnecting with your family. Like 2-3 months can make a big difference. The progress you can make in a year, I mean, is a blip compared to what you've been doing the past however many years. And it's amazing how far you can come in a year. You know, it really is.
All right, Robert. Well, we covered a lot, and you said so many wonderful things here today. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I think everything's kind of touched on all the bases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming out and taking the time out of your day to share your story and support on the road of recovery. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you doing this.